Welcome to the Little Eagle That Did, Understanding Transformational Leadership session of the Mind Your Coaching Institute. My name is Berrien, and I will be your facilitator for today's session. I am the founder and CEO of Lead Educational Consulting, LLC, where we support teachers and leaders. I have been an educator for 20 years, serving students, staff, and the community as a teacher, instructional coach, administrator, senior director, and now consultant. As a transformational leader, I'm excited to embark on this journey of discovery and learning as you define and refine your leadership practices to improve your desired outcomes. Before we begin our session, let's review the helpful tools that will be used to ensure the success of our session and our personal learning. We will utilize 4 session signals to guide our work. The signals will be located in the lower corners of each slide and will correspond with activities on your interactive participant worksheets. Make sure you've downloaded the interactive worksheet for today's session as you will use it for moments of reflection and analysis. This session is purposed to empower and equip educational leaders to enhance their skills in the areas of communication, development, accountability, quality control or assurance, and in creating an inclusive environment by taking a deep and reflective dive into an evaluation and refinement of the systems that undergird leader, learner, and supporter success. We have 3 session objectives for today. Objective 1: participants will gain an understanding of 5 systems of sustainability employed by transformational leaders. Objective 2: participants will evaluate systems employed by transformational leaders and provide feedback to refine current practices. And Objective 3: participants will reflectively review and refine transformational leadership practices, applying new knowledge and skills. Let's get started with our first objective, understanding systems of sustainability. In this objective, participants will gain an understanding of 5 systems of sustainability employed by transformational leaders as presented in the Little Eagle That Did. Lead Educational Consulting leverages fictional characters and plots to illustrate transformational leadership lessons for organizations or institutions to be used to aid leaders in facilitating professional learning and development. The Little Eagle That Did will be our anchor text for today's session. Let's engage in a read aloud of this session's anchor text, The Little Eagle That Did. Lead Educational Consulting, LLC, Leader Learner Series. The Little Eagle That Did. Lead Educational Consulting, LLC, Leader Learner Series. The Little Eagle That Did. Written by Berrien. Lead Educational Consulting leverages fictional characters and plots to illustrate transformational leadership lessons for organizations and institutions to be used to aid leaders in facilitating professional learning and development. High atop the tallest tree, peeking and peering for the heavens to see, in a prickly nest of grass of the sea, lay a baby bald eagle, new as can be. It wasn't alone, there were 4 others too. No mother, no father, what would they do? Misfortune had come and took the 2 at the time that the 5 should bid adieu. What shall we eat? We will surely die, frantically yelped one of the 5. The food is down there, we cannot fly. How will we get what we need to survive? One yelled, we don't have what we need. And another cried, we shall never succeed. 2 merely sulked in agreement indeed. They had no visible plan of how to proceed. But one little eagle was not in despair. It determined within to fly down there, to take flight using its new feathered pair, soaring through the air with less than a care. Its vision was clear, its purpose in sight. It would fly today with all of its might. No matter the odds or inexperience in flight, it would take air before day turned to night. At the edge of the nest, 1, 2, jump did it all. In the big open sky, little eagle was small. It spotted its prey and heeded the call. Attempted to perch, it had a great fall. Perching was the challenge, not its new wings. Flying was easy, now to landing on things. This was the test, the match for a king. No one would write its song of failure to sing. It missed the branch, fell to the ground. Such a hard fall and calamitous sound. Discouraged at best, it looked all around. Entangled by failure, its future was bound. What shall I do? Failure is near. The bright light of hope is no longer here. The eaglets were right. This was my fear. I don't have what it takes to make purpose appear. Little eagle flew back up to the nest, waiting to die like all of the rest. But then a thought, this is a test. I'm not giving up. I will do my best. This time it resolved to practice in one place, jumping and branching from space to space. Always returning back to home base, it worked on coordination and picked up its pace. Day after day, this was the routine. Even when faint, it never lost steam. Jumping and branching from beam to beam, flying and perching were no longer a dream. Today was the day it would fly and land on its 2 feet, determined to stand. And that's what it did on gravel and sand. Its interest to success was nothing but grand. It wasn't alone. There were 4 others too. Seeing the example, the eaglets flew. They landed on ground. Their confidence grew. We've conquered our dread. We can start anew. Perching on land would ensure their opportunity to secure, sustain, and maintain the ability to live beyond the nest, exhibiting vitality, unlocking the possibilities of a new reality. The end. In our anchor text, Little Eagle realized the need to learn how to perch. A perch is the foundation for much of what a bird does in its daily life. The bird's perch becomes the stabilizing framework by which other activities function effectively and efficiently. An organizational system, similarly, is a framework by which organizations operate, manage, and produce desired outcomes and resources. Transformational leaders manage organizational responsibilities and operations through strategic and thoughtful systems. We've transformed PERCH into an acronym. Purchase are the purposeful establishment of responsive, coordinated, and high impact emerging systems employed by transformational leaders. Transformational leaders establish the following purchase to ensure sustainability within their organization. Perch 1, communication, which is a multifaceted system purposed to articulate an organization's vision, mission, and core beliefs. Perch 2, development. It is the established systems to facilitate the professional growth and development of key stakeholder groups, as well as protocols to convey expectations in a uniform manner. Perch 3, accountability. This is a strategic system of monitoring outcomes through data collection, analysis, calibration, and in time adjustments in response to data. Perch 4, quality control or assurance. This is a system to ensure the integrity and alignment of products and services to universal expectations, for example, benchmarks and standards. And lastly, Perch 5, inclusivity. This is a deliberate system acknowledging diversity and facilitating initiatives to avoid excluding key stakeholder groups. Take this time to think about your organization, your school, your leadership team. Have you implemented any of the purchase of stability within your institution? Take this time to reflect. Academic leaders are responsible for managing many areas of oversight to include student activities, absenteeism, regulations, funding, facility maintenance, teaching, testing, vacancies, etc. Having systems or purchase in place contribute to the effectiveness of the implementation of plans focused on each of these priority areas. Consider the areas of oversight within an educational institution? What systems have you observed in place to address concerns in the areas listed? Let's engage in a reflection activity. Transformational leadership is the process by which organizational members engage in attempts to make changes that increase organizational effectiveness and the performance of followers by transforming personal values and concepts. Consider the following reflections on leadership. Which quote most closely represents your view of transformational leadership in education? Is it the first? Leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. The second quote, before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is about growing others. The third quote, leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. Or the fourth quote, leaders are not born, they are made. Which quote most closely represents your view of transformational leadership in education? Now, let's continue reflecting. What do you hope to accomplish as a result of your engagement in this course? How will your leadership practice evolve? Use your interactive worksheet to respond to these two questions. Let's gain a deeper understanding of a systems based approach to transformational leadership. Much can be learned from an in depth study and reflection of the systems that support academic, public, and private sector organizations. Our work will focus on applying universal leadership principles across disciplines and institutional settings to strengthen organizational systems to improve outcomes. We will focus our attention on the communication system, the system of development or professional development, the system of accountability, the system of quality control or assurance, and lastly, the system of inclusion. The first system we will review is the first perch, communication. The communication perch is the multifaceted system an organization employs purpose to articulate its vision, mission, and core beliefs. Communication refers to the articulation of key knowledge to facilitate discourse, dialogue, and expectations to organizational members. McShane and Von Glenau, 2005, formally defined communication as the process by which information is transmitted and understood between two or more people. Transformational leaders ensure the articulation of the vision, mission, and core values of the organization. They involve and consider stakeholders in the communication system, and they ensure efficient and innovative modes of communication. Think about your organization. What communication system is currently used by your organization and your leadership team? Write your response in your interactive worksheet. Consider the following observations of an effective communication system. Transformational leaders collaborate with other leaders, learners, and stakeholders to develop a shared vision that articulates the important ideals of the organization, what matters most to all parties involved. Great leaders also share the mission or the why and how, which reveals the heart of the organization. Core values are primarily centered around altruism, virtues, ethics, responsibility, adaptability, and innovation. Transformational leaders encourage an open invitation for stakeholders, leaders, learners, and supporters to engage in transparent, clear, and collaborative conversations centered around reaching the organization's attainable goals. And transformational leaders employ effective modes of communication that are useful, timely, accurate, and sufficient. Let's move on to the second perch, development or professional development. The development perch is focused on the established systems used to build the capacity of key stakeholder groups of leaders, learners, and supporters by facilitating professional learning and encouraging growth to improve overall outcomes. Gardner stated the most effective, successful professionals are constantly learning. They take the time to apply what they have learned and they continually work to improve themselves. Transformational leaders ensure that the development of leaders, learners, and supporters is differentiated. They take a scaffolded approach to consider the instructional modalities, the rates of acquisition, skill, and content exposure of those they are instructing when they are developing learning plans for organizational members. Take this time to consider what professional development system is currently used by your organization and leadership team. Consider the following observations of an effective development system. Instructional modalities refers to the options available for the presentation of information or knowledge sharing to leaders, learners, and supporters. Acquisition rates or learning rates, according to Newsombaum and Hartley, reveal the extent to which individuals weight recent feedback when updating their estimates of the value of different actions. Leaders understand the prerequisite skills needed to successfully complete tasks associated with a particular task, requirement, or expectation, and the capacity of organizational members to perform tasks at his or her skill level. Content exposure refers to the current knowledge of the individual. How much of the content have they previously learned or have a background with? Our next perch or system is the accountability system. The accountability perch is focused on a strategic system of monitoring outcomes through data collection, analysis, calibration, and in time adjustments in response to data. Gary Nielsen stated once people have a clear idea of what decisions they should and should not be making, holding them accountable for decisions feels fair. Accountability can be placed on an individual from external sources, such as supervisors, a board of directors, donors, etc., called other accountability, or by oneself, which is called self accountability. Transformational leaders ensure the implementation of other accountability and self accountability practices like the use of self monitoring, self criticism, creating a culture of accountability, measures of efficacy, and providing feedback. Take this time to consider what professional accountability system is currently used by your organization and leadership team. Write your response in your interactive worksheet. Consider the following observations of effective accountability systems: self monitoring, which requires individuals to become cognizant of their actions and the impact those actions have on others and the organization; self criticism, which allows a leader to identify specific modifiable areas within that need of improvement. The self accountable individual is receptive and seeks honest and transparent conversations with stakeholders to improve and manage his or her behavior. When creating a culture of accountability, leaders must utilize evaluation or assessment tools to provide qualitative and quantitative measures of efficacy. Transformational leaders provide routine, succinct, and purposeful feedback based on a wide range of current data sources. And lastly, organizational members take ownership of their actions and outcomes. Moving on to the fourth perch, the quality control or assurance system. The quality control assurance perch is focused on ensuring the integrity and alignment of products and services to universal expectations, for example, benchmarks and standards. John Ruskin stated, "Quality is never an accident. It is always the result of high intention, sincere effort, intelligent direction, and skillful execution." Quality control is a process which is being used by a business in order to make sure that the quality of the product is improved with time and is also maintained as per the standards of the company or international standards. Transformational leaders ensure the establishment of measures of excellence to ensure the effectiveness of created products through benchmarks or standards, rubrics, frameworks, and program evaluations. Take this time to consider what quality control or assurance system is currently used by your organization and leadership team. Write your responses in your interactive worksheet. Consider the following observations of an effective quality control or assurance system. Transformational leaders establish standards and or benchmarks articulating the expectations of acceptable, appropriate, and attainable products or outcomes. Organizational leaders employ quality assurance systems through intentional frameworks to increase the confidence of the product, improve customer satisfaction, and maximize the utilization of resources. These leaders utilize quality management frameworks to facilitate the efficiency of quality control and quality assurance systems. Leaders also use program evaluation as a tool to measure organizational programs against quality standards. In this process, leaders engage in continuous feedback and monitoring of programs within the organization, gauging the impact of implementation, whether effective or ineffective. Our final perch is the inclusion perch. The inclusion perch is focused on deliberate systems acknowledging diversity and facilitating initiatives to avoid excluding key stakeholder groups. Melinda Gates stated, if you want to include everyone, we have to help everyone develop their talents and use their gifts for the good of the community. That's what inclusion means. Everyone contributes. Embracing diversity requires recognizing the differences that exist amongst individuals and leveraging those differences to enhance organizational culture and outcomes. Transformational leaders ensure the intentional establishment of practices focused on the development of inclusive leaders and organizational inclusion through interest surveys, open dialogue, and equitable or fair practices. Take this time to consider what inclusion system is currently used by your organization and leadership team. Consider the following observations of an inclusion system. Inclusive leaders encourage open dialogue, adopt flexibility and rules of acceptable behaviors, demonstrate an interest in development and learning, and create an environment for individuals and groups to leverage the benefits of a diverse and inclusive culture. Inclusive leaders model respect for others, recognize the input of others, and are responsive to organizational members. Inclusive leaders are they also value and utilize diversity inventories to gain knowledge of the diversity of organizational members. And lastly, organizations must employ equitable employment practices, fair promotion and review processes while ensuring employees are comfortable balancing their personal identities and work life balances. Now that we're familiar with the five perches or systems that transformational leaders employ, let's move to Objective 2 System Evaluations and Feedback. In this session, participants will evaluate systems employed by transformational leaders and provide feedback to refine their current practices. We're going to help five little eagles or leaders of schools transform their school's academic outcomes and student achievement with a systems approach. Let's start with Little Eagle 1, where our focus is on the communication perch. Little Eagle, a first year principal, was assigned to a school 1 point from receiving a state accountability school grade rating of F. During the first year, Little Eagle implemented a culture shift and began focusing on standards based instruction as well as monitoring and culture building. In the second year of Little Eagle's leadership, the school raised the school grade to within points of a state accountability school grade rating of C, which would release them from state oversight. The next year, the school was extremely strategic in teacher placement, utilization of curriculum resources, interventions, and monitoring student outcomes. The school's preliminary school grade was calculated to receive a high C, points from a school grade of B. However, the school faced a bump in the road with a challenge from the state and the school's grade on hold. While waiting for the release of the school's grade, the school's identity was impacted as the leader wrestled with the uncertainty of not knowing whether the work they had done previously would be validated by an increase in school grade. Little Eagle's confidence took a hard hit, yet Little Eagle resiliently pressed forward and led the teachers to continue the work they had started the previous year. This new school year brought new teachers and new leaders and new roles, all mixed with the uncertainty of whether the strategies from the previous school year truly worked. Thinking about the communication perch, what advice would you give Little Eagle 1 to improve the communication system at its school? Here are possible suggestions for Little Eagle. Conduct a multi-grade level instructional walk of classrooms. Review data trends to observe the number of classrooms with standard aligned instruction and task. Number two, revisit the vision, mission, and core values of the school. Then redesign and rearticulate the vision statement to all staff. Lastly, align all future initiatives and instructional foci to the vision statement and core values. Now let's help our second little eagle. In this scenario, our focus is on the development of leaders, learners, and supporters. Little Eagle 2 was placed at a school for a first year principalship. As a first year principal transitioning from a high performing school, Little Eagle wanted to implement many of the unique and rigorous programming employed at the previous school, as well as continue the work and expectations set for teachers at the high performing school. However, Little Eagle School was very different from the previous school. The current school was considered low performing with high teacher turnover. Little Eagle was given the challenge of transforming the school to a higher performing school. Little Eagle became frustrated when staff couldn't follow the vision nor implement rigorous programming. Not only did the staff struggle, but the students needed foundational instruction before the staff could even consider a more advanced curriculum. Thinking about the development perch, what advice would you give Little Eagle 2 to improve the development system of its school? Here are possible suggestions for Little Eagle. 1. Administer a survey to staff to determine their professional development needs. Then, prioritize common needs aligned to the organization's goals. Next, develop a plan of action to facilitate training sessions and provide each participant the opportunity to reflect on his or her experience with the sessions to identify growth areas. And lastly, revisit the surveys and student achievement data to note any change. Moving on to Little Eagle 3. Our focus with Little Eagle 3 will be on accountability. Little Eagle 3 was a newly assigned principal and promoted from the assistant principal role at a school in its final year of grace. If the school did not transform and earn a grade of C or higher, the school would need to close or relinquish management to outside entities. Support teams worked with Little Eagle to address accountability concerns that proved to put a crack in the foundation of the school systems. However, leaders, learners, and staff were still not held accountable for the predetermined goals that would produce the academic outcomes that will move the school in a positive direction. Considering what you know about the accountability system, what advice would you give Little Eagle 3 to improve the accountability system at its school? Here are possible suggestions for Little Eagle. Establish accountability protocols for lesson planning, delivery, task development, student work expectations, among other focus areas. Develop a system of monitoring student academic progress, instructional delivery, task alignment, and attendance, as well as acknowledging students and staff as a reward for meeting agreed upon goals. Lastly, conduct scheduled meetings with staff, students, and community members to transparently share the progress of the school's efforts and solicit feedback. With our next Little Eagle, 4, we will focus on the quality control or assurance system. Little Eagle 4 was also a novice principal, but with 1 year of principalship when we began working together. The school, a school with limited time to transform or encounter state oversight, was challenged by high staff vacancies and inexperienced, ill prepared instructors. While Little Eagle worked to develop the individuals filling the positions, whether substitutes or willing employees working out of area, a focus on ensuring the quality of what students were exposed to needed to be addressed. Much of what teachers produced independently was misaligned to the newly adopted state benchmarks. Using the knowledge that you have of the quality control system, what advice would you give Little Eagle 4 to improve the quality control system of the school? Here are possible suggestions for Little Eagle. Collaborate with support staff, possibly at the school district level, to gain a deeper understanding of the benchmarks and knowledge in creating equivalent experiences via formal and informal assessments and tasks. Establish a system of reviewing teacher created tasks to ensure benchmark alignment. Next, encourage teacher collaboration with peers and the leadership team to review benchmark objectives, state benchmark documents, and then create equivalent experiences for students in alignment with what students would experience on the state assessment. Lastly, monitor the efficacy of implementation. And for our last Little Eagle, we will focus on the inclusion perch. Little Eagle 5 was also a first year principal assigned to lead a school that had most recently exited differentiated accountability status by receiving a grade of C, but due to a lack of system sustainability, was headed back into district and state oversight with the potential of dropping to a D. Little Eagle was promoted from an assistant principalship at another school in need of transformation. At the previous school, Little Eagle faced much frustration as the building leader made decisions independent of leadership, staff, and stakeholder input. The school environment was one of exclusion, even regarding student treatment, where specific demographics of students were viewed and treated as a bothersome disruption to the flow of the school environment, which was created by the building leader. Upon reassignment and promotion, Little Eagle was excited for the opportunity to impact change in a similar yet different population of students and staff. At the new school, the previous leaders focused on building employee morale and creating a mutually respectful school community, while the academic focus was not always strategic and intentional. Little Eagle was charged with establishing a strong academic focus while continuing efforts of previous leaders to strengthen school culture by creating an inclusive environment. Little Eagle struggled initially to understand the importance of acknowledging the diversity in skill, knowledge, interest, background, and culture of the staff. For Little Eagle, it was all about teaching teachers how to increase student achievement. However, there was a human relations side of leading that would later impact how the staff received the demands placed on them to learn and grow beyond their current capabilities. Based on your knowledge of the inclusion perch, what advice would you give Little Eagle 5 to improve the inclusion system of the school? Here are possible suggestions for Little Eagle. Leverage the experience faced by Little Eagle at the previous school to lay the foundation for the need to make inclusion a priority. Embrace the diversity among staff and utilize the differences to create an inclusive culture that facilitates open dialogue, shared decision making, respect, recognition, and responsiveness to the needs of staff, students, and stakeholders. Let's move into our final objective of today's session: refining transformational practices. In this last objective, you will reflectively review and refine your transformational leadership practices, applying the new knowledge and skills that you've just acquired. Using page 2 of your interactive worksheet, respond to the following question: how will you use the knowledge you've acquired to refine your leadership practices in each of the areas below and build the capacity of those you support? Communication, development, accountability, quality control, and inclusion. As we conclude today's session, remember the 5 perches or systems employed by transformational leaders: communication, development, accountability, quality control, and inclusion. Thank you for engaging with me today in the Little Eagle That Did Understanding Transformational Leadership session. Please feel free to connect with us. Talk to you soon.